Saskatchewan, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to the Daily Sovereignty Podcast, your daily briefing, Monday through Friday. We're here, we're talking about sovereignty, we're talking about an essential briefing on Indigenous rights and tribal policy and self-determination across the United States and Canada. If you're tuning in for the very first time, welcome. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode to amplify Indigenous voices. You can find me every Monday through Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Now, today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026, and today we're covering major legislative developments, legal challenges, cultural milestones, environmental alerts, and groundbreaking advances in tribal energy sovereignty. Let's get right into today's briefing. According to Native News Online, U.S. Senators Lisa Murkowski and Brian Schatz have introduced legislation to implement recommendations from the Commission on Native Children and provide more than $1.3 billion for Native youth health, education, and safety programs. Now, why this matters to tribes? The proposal would direct significant federal resources towards tribal schools, child welfare services, and culturally informed mental health programs for Native youth. Why this matters to sovereignty? It strengthens education and social sovereignty by recognizing the federal trust responsibility while expanding tribal authority over the well-being and future of Native children. In other news this morning, according to Indian Country Today News, leaders from the Pueblo of Acoma, the Navajo Nation, and New Mexico lawmakers are opposing efforts to remove federal mineral withdrawal protections surrounding Chaco Cultural National Historic Park. Now, why it matters to tribes: the protections help preserve sacred ancestral landscapes and guard local groundwater resources from expanded oil and gas development. Now, why it matters to sovereignty: this reinforces the sacred site and land sovereignty by emphasizing that tribal consent should be central to decisions affecting Indigenous homelands. According to Indian Country Today News, a coalition of Washington state tribes and conservation partners have filed a federal lawsuit challenging the Endangered Species Act regulations, and they argue weaken habitat protections. Now, we reported about this yesterday about the healthy salmon and the Chinook salmon. Now, these populations remain vital to tribal economies, nutrition, culture, and treaty rights throughout the Pacific Northwest. And so it matters to sovereignty because the lawsuit advances food and water sovereignty by using legal tools to defend treaty protected resources and hold federal agencies accountable. And in tribal sports, media, and culture, according to Indian Country Today News, Indigenous athletes from across Alaska gathered for the 65th World Eskimo Indian Olympics, competing in traditional Arctic events such as the blanket toss and high kick while celebrating generations of cultural knowledge. Now, why it matters to tribes: the games preserve traditional skills, strengthen cultural identity, and foster unity among Indigenous communities. Why it matters to sovereignty: the event advances cultural sovereignty by ensuring traditional Indigenous games and teachings continue to thrive under Native leadership. All right, we're going to take a look at our severe weather and wildfire watch this morning. According to Native News Online, severe wildfires across Western Canada continue. They have forced more evacuations in several First Nations territories and increased support for Indigenous-led emergency response teams. Now, we just really hope that everybody that's affected by the smoke, please take care of your elders. Please make sure your children are not outside during the smoke. It is really, really bad so far. All right, we're going to take a deep dive into energy, infrastructure, and utility sovereignty. According to the United States Department of the Interior, the Southern Ute Indian tribe has fully operationalized the nation's first Tribal Energy Resource Agreement, or TERA. This allows the tribe to manage energy leases and utilities rights of way without requiring individual federal approvals for each project. Now, this matters to tribes. It's big. The agreement reduces bureaucratic delays and accelerates both traditional and renewable energy projects. Why it matters to sovereignty: it represents a historic advancement in energy and utility sovereignty by transferring greater decision-making authority directly to the tribal leadership. Congratulations. And according to the Bureau of Indian Affairs Division of Energy and Mineral Development newsletter, the Round Valley Indian tribes have expanded operations at the Seven Tribes Rock Quarry and secured supply agreements for local infrastructure and transportation projects. Now, why it matters to tribes: the expansion creates jobs, strengthens workforce development, and generates community revenue. Why it matters to sovereignty: it advances workforce and infrastructure sovereignty through tribally owned business enterprises and locally controlled supply chains. And according to Native News Online, the Bureau of Land Management has approved a major pipeline conversion project in partnership with the Lighton Rancheria to support groundwater storage and water infrastructure in California. Now, why it matters to tribes: the project contributes to drought resilience, future house development, and reliable long-term water access. And why it matters to sovereignty: it advances water sovereignty by increasing tribal participation in the planning and management of critical regional water infrastructure. And according to the United States Department of Energy, Office of Indian Energy, a new $50 million grant program has already been announced. We've been talking about it on this podcast. This helps supports tribal energy projects, including renewable energy systems, microgrids, and community scale generation. We really want to make sure that the tribes know how and make sure that you get to the application process through the Department of Energy. Now, according to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, $6.8 million in tribal energy development capacity grants has been awarded to assist tribal governments in developing energy regulations, legal frameworks, and internal administrative capacity. Why it matters to tribes is that the funding helps tribes build the expertise needed to oversee complex energy projects and regulatory systems. All right, so congratulations. We have not got that list of tribes who've received those awards, but once we do, we'll definitely put that on the Daily Sovereignty Report. Now, according to the United States Department of Energy, Office of Indian Energy, a tribal energy program webinar will be held pretty soon, July 28th, providing guidance on grant applications, microgrid assistance programs, and energy infrastructure funding opportunities. This event may be valuable for tribal leaders, energy managers, and grant writers, and economic development staff seeking additional federal resources. And according to the Bureau of Indian Affairs Trust Services Bulletin, ongoing pre-application consultations are available for tribal governments interested in developing energy codes, regulatory frameworks, and future tribal energy resource agreements. These consultations provide technical guidance for tribes interested in expanding energy governance and infrastructure capacity. All right, everybody, thanks again. I know I saw a lot of folks clicking this podcast so far. That wraps up today's edition of the Daily Sovereignty Report podcast. Now, when Indigenous nations exercise greater control over their land, water, energy, and other infrastructure, and future generations are definitely going to benefit from this. This becomes more than a legal concept. Sovereignty becomes a lived reality. If you found this morning's briefing valuable, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend, colleague, or community member. Remember, you can listen to me every day, Monday through Friday, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. My name is Aaron Thomas. We'll see you again tomorrow morning for another Daily Sovereignty Report.